Last week, I covered the recent events in Gaza, where 62 Palestinian protesters were shot and killed by Israeli forces and 2,000 more injured, with 0 deaths and 0 injuries reported from the Israeli side. Now, this was discussed on Real Time with Bill Maher, where New York Times journalist Bari Weiss doesn't appear to be able to empathize at all with the Palestinian protesters that were killed in that event. Watch.
I love you, but the riots were not caused by the embassy move.
No, I said they were linked.
They're not linked.
They are.
No, they're
Well,
not.
Yes,
okay.
They were made much worse. These demonstrations were going on, but they
When
exploded
Hamas
with the
attacked
embassy.
Israel in 2008, when Hamas attacked Israel in 2012, and it attacked Israel in 2014, the embassy was in Tel Aviv all of those times. Okay? This was an intentional. First of all, these protests had been going on for 6 weeks, and they intentionally moved up the day so that it would coincide with the opening of the embassy move, so that we would all be disgusted and heartbroken when we saw this horrible split screen of Ivanka Trump looking like she was at a country club next to poor, desperate people dying in Gaza.
I agree with you. They planned that. Absolutely.
Right. And I'm just saying, let's not fall for a trap that is being set by a theocratic, authoritarian group that is sending
I'm not
women
falling,
and children
I don't think I'm falling
to be
for a
human
trap.
shields.
I agree. I couldn't agree more with all of that. What?
This is really disgusting. These protesters, look, even if you want to say that they were all Hamas, 0 Israelis were injured or killed. 62 Palestinians were murdered by snipers. They were dropping tear gas on these protesters from drones. Do you know why they were using drones? Because the protesters weren't close enough to throw the tear gas. So, if you have to use drones to drop tear gas on protesters, it shows you that these people were not a threat. Nobody was injured. Nobody was killed from the Israeli side. It was all Palestinian death and injuries. But, like, the built-in assumption that Bari Weiss has here is that, oh, well, obviously Israeli forces had to murder these people. There's no questioning at all about what the Israeli forces did. None. It's like, well, Hamas sent the women and children out there to get killed. Why did they have to be killed? Why did the Israeli forces have to shoot them? The Israeli government are not, killer robots. They can decide for themselves if I should shoot these people, but they were shot and killed. These protesters who at best were armed with slingshots were murdered. And this is on HBO with Bill Maher just nodding along. Bari Weiss being Bari Weiss. This is who she is. I'm amazed by people like this. And it's one thing to have no empathy and you're just some YouTube commenter, but to be a New York Times journalist and not be able to see outside your own bubble, to recognize that lives here were lost and they didn't have to be lost it's unbelievable to me. Now, she mentioned there the attacks from Hamas in 2008, 2012, 2014. Let me show you some data from B'Tselem. So B'Tselem is an Israeli-based human rights organization, okay? Israeli-based. This is not, one side showing the deaths that Palestinians faced. This is an Israeli-based human rights organization. Here are the charts they have of the deaths and injuries from 2000 and beyond. So, looking at this, the red bars are Palestinians who were killed by Israelis. So this is specifically kills done by the other side. So, Palestinians killed by Israelis. There is clearly a difference here in the amount of death and destruction that one side is causing. When you look at the amount of Israelis killed, yes, none of these deaths should be happening. But the reality is that it is Palestinians that are being killed at a much higher rate in these sorts of clashes, or in the sense in the case of the recent event, not a clash, just straight up murder from one side. This is clear what side is doing the destruction. Here's the next chart. Palestinians killed on the left make up 88% of the deaths. 12% is the Israelis. Now, look at the amount of children killed. 94% of the children killed have been Palestinian. 6% have been Israeli. The next chart here is injuries, where once again it shows you what side is being the aggressor. Palestinians injured at a much higher rate than Israelis are. Now, understand, it's not anti-Semitic to point this out. This is the right-wing Israeli government doing this. You can criticize a government for murdering people who should not be murdered. The absurdity that we have approached here, or where the discussion is unbelievable. This is the mainstream thinking. What Bari Weiss is saying here is mainstream. That, oh, well, obviously the Palestinians had to be murdered. How much clearer do you have to make this? So, yes, has Hamas carried out terrorist acts? Yes, I can also acknowledge that. But why can't you acknowledge that the Israeli forces, the right-wing Israeli government, have also murdered a lot more Palestinians than the Palestinians have of Israelis? It's clear. So this is, I have nothing else to say. If you can't empathize with the Palestinians living in an open-air prison, they can't leave Gaza. I mean, do people not know that? That's why they're protesting. They're stuck there. So, when you are stuck in an open-air prison in one of the most densely populated places on Earth for years, yeah, you're going to get a little angry. You're going to want to protest. And even with that, even with their anger, with their protest, the amount of deaths and injuries are still coming at them. It is still them who are dying, the Palestinians who are dying. So, be able to empathize with everybody in this situation and understand that one side is the aggressor. The Israeli government has the power in this situation. They are the aggressor. So be able to empathize with Palestinians.